having as, part of an avenue to support your job search, in addition to expanding your network. More than 50% of job opportunities or job offers are a result from some form of networking. Now, whether that's LinkedIn or past employers, but this is really an avenue to expand who you know and really rely on, someone else's expertise and all of the lessons they've learned along their career to really help you and support you and learn from, their past.
Ashley, ready to get going?
We are ready.
All right.
Unless you want me to share the joke my daughter told me this morning.
Go for it. I love a good joke.
In support of having an interactive webinar, please, feel free to chime in, add anything in the chat as we go. But just to kind of kick us off, if anyone has an answer, maybe they'll get a Starbucks gift card in case we need to bribe some interaction. But how does NASA organize a party? How does NASA organize a party? No party planners? They plan it. Ding, ding, corny joke of the day. Yeah.
Kaboom.
Oh, hey guys, I'm Ashley French. I am director of the talent management team at Arkansas Center for Data Sciences. As I mentioned, Nicole Parsons is our presenter extraordinaire with support from our executive director, Bill Yoder. And even though I see a lot of familiar names, in case you are not aware of who ACDS is, Arkansas Center for Data Sciences, we are a nonprofit, and we are really dedicated to support you and really any Arkansan that's interested in an IT career. We provide job coaching, job discovery. We do have access to some free training opportunities to help you grow your skills and abilities within the tech space. And so if you haven't checked us out, we'll add a link into the chat and hopefully, get to visit with you one-on-one to see your area of interest.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley, for getting us started this afternoon. Hopefully everyone is enjoying their Friday Eve. Thank you for spending your lunch hour with us. We definitely appreciate it. This is the second installment of our mentorship series. We just wanted to kind of do a quick recap, make sure that just in case you weren't with us last month, you kind of got the basis of what we've already discussed, where we're at so far. So in part one, we discussed, reverse mentoring, meaning that everyone always has something that they can be learning. Jenny on our team actually shared her experience on learning, some more modern tools, ChatGPT being one of them, and technologies just from other members on our teams. And then her as well being able to share her wealth of knowledge and her experience in the HR field down with us, because she has an amazing background in HR and she kind of keeps us straight on all of our new policies and what's going on in the HR realm. So definitely a lot to be learned there. We also covered the roles of being a mentee, where to find a mentor, how to reach out on social media, and how to ask for a mentor as well. We talked about how to actually ask the question for someone, how to ask them to be your mentor, and also shared just some email templates of what that may look like on that side. So since it was such a big piece in the last part, I just want to quickly reshare, how to reach out on social media to find a mentor. Ideally, your mentor is going to be someone that's in the industry, someone that's in that job that you're trying to get into. You can strategically reach out to someone in your current network, maybe just reach out and say, hey, I value your network. I know that it's well established, well built. Do you have someone in mind that may be able to help me get to, XYZ goal? This is what I'm trying to accomplish, someone that can help me get there. You can also just make a general post on LinkedIn. I don't know if you know, it is like a social media site. So you can just make a post, ask for a referral for a mentor. if you go that route, just stating your request, what area of interest you're looking at, a quick summary of what your current skill set is, and then what you're trying to get, guidance you're trying to get from a mentor. And then you can also just do some digging and some research on your own. Start with some keyword searches, focusing on like those ideal job titles, skills, companies you want to target, and then reach out with a warm hello and just kind of go from there. As a note, I'll make sure to include a link in our last webinar whenever I email everyone after today, just so you have that as well, just in case you want to go back and listen to that webinar. Or if you want to, catch up on some of that, I'll include that this afternoon. All right. So before we dive into the next section of the webinar, I just wanted to ask a quick question to the audience. Assuming you're joining this webinar because a mentor is definitely on your mind or on the horizon, we're just kind of curious as to what's stopping you from reaching out to a mentor right now or asking someone to be your mentor. So I'll give it just a few minutes in the chat before we kind of kick off and get started. Ashley may have trouble. Your Starbucks gift card didn't even entice them to chat.
What bribes? What do we need? I think.
Okay. Joseph, I think that's a big one. Yeah. Don't want to be a hassle. Your location may be affecting it. Absolutely. So Joseph, I think we actually talked about the hassle in our last one, that whole imposter syndrome. It's a big trait for IT candidates in general. So Ashley, that may be something we want to make another webinar on, how to tackle imposter syndrome. Didn't get a response. Okay.
I think so many people are grateful. There's a bunch of content on gratitude, and people want to give back. So yeah, I totally understand. You think it's a hassle, you don't want to be a burden, but know that people want to share their knowledge and want to give back to others.
Awesome. Okay. It is definitely tough. All right. Great answers. Thank you so much for participating. I want to keep it moving because I want to make sure we have enough time to hear from Phil, because he's the one that's going to give us the most wealth of knowledge. With that being said, I want to introduce our guest speaker, Bill Yoder, our Executive Director here at Arkansas Center for Data Science. And so, Bill, I just had a couple quick questions I thought we may be able to run through if that sounds good to you.
Go for it, Nicole.
All right. Hopefully no one can hear it, but there's some construction going on outside, so that may be fun. All right, so Bill, thinking back on your experience as a mentee, can you maybe tell us about, your vetting process for identifying potential mentors?
Okay, thank you. So Bill Yoder, guys, I'm not sure when I first got started that we called it a vetting process. I think that's a new term, but a couple things just in the way of introduction. There are a lot of professions that actually require a mentor, right? I mean, to get a license in some of these professions, you have to have a mentor. I have a son who is a degreed social worker. He couldn't get his license. He had to have a mentor that he met with every week for 2 years. So we don't do that necessarily in the IT profession, but it's probably a good idea to encourage it. If I go back to the first job that I had that involved leadership, actually the lead guy had left. I was in charge of a bunch of operations people and had a lot of people reporting to me. And the guy who really knew everything technically about the computer system didn't really want to manage. So he said, you take the job and I'll help you. So I became his mentor on managing people, and he became my mentor on technical leadership. And that worked out pretty well for about 4 years. The other thing that I would say is, you never get to the point where you know everything you need to know. And when ACDS started as a nonprofit, I had always worked for corporations. I'd worked for big corporations. I moved here from Missouri after 15 years. Well, I needed somebody to teach me the ropes of what's been going on in Arkansas for 15 years, and somebody who had run a nonprofit that was a public-private partnership funded by donations as well as federal and state dollars. Those were all foreign terms to Bill. And fortunately, there's a gentleman that had been well-known. He'd worked for Axiom, and now he's in the nonprofit business. And he took me under his wings. We met for hours each week on all the contacts, all the operational parts of doing grants and funding and building a team. So that's probably two ends back in 1972 and 2019.
Awesome. So overall, Bill, how do you think that those relationships have impacted your personal or professional development?
Well, the word that comes to mind is, do you succeed or not? You know, the mentor, and I don't know how many people on the webinar actually have a mentor or are looking for a mentor, but it can be a little humbling. You need to admit that you really don't have all the answers, and you got to find somebody who fills in the blanks. It doesn't mean that they know everything, but you've done enough research or you've talked to them long enough that you understand that they can help you fill in the blanks. In a lot of cases, they've already been doing this job for a period of time. You're new into this job. That's kind of an easy, I don't know it all, I need a mentor. And you know, those relationships. One thing I was going to say is that I don't think that you pick a mentor because they're your friend. They might become a very good friend, but that's not why you pick them. You know, you pick them because they know something that you need to learn, and then you know you listen. So I think it's had a big impact, Nicole. You know, the first opportunity in IT leadership led to a job where we got moved around the country to different data centers, working with, you know, what's now FIS. And when you go into a new data center, you know, even though you know the software and you know kind of the different job descriptions and you're going to play a leadership role, you got to find somebody on the ground that can be your inside person. And that really becomes a mentor. I think when we moved to San Diego, all new acronyms, all new terminology, you know, I trusted and brought a guy kind of in. We'd go to a meeting with 15 people. And when we left that room, we went immediately to my office, just the two of them. And I said, what the heck were they talking about? So he became my mentor for about a year until I developed, you know, the language of the business.
I think that's amazing and very relatable when talking about all the acronyms, because I felt that way when I joined ACDS. So very thankful for our team that definitely mentored me and helped me catch up on that. So absolutely. But Bill, I'm sure you get a lot of messages or emails asking for guidance or assistance. So speaking from a mentorship perspective yourself, what may entice you to say yes to someone if someone is reaching out to ask you to be a mentor?
So somebody's saying, Bill, I want you to be my mentor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just trying to give them some advice, you know, because a lot of our candidates are going to be asking someone to be their mentor. How can we arm them with the tools that may say, okay, yes, that person may want to, you know, mentor them after that.
Yeah. I don't know if this analogy will hold water with everybody, but if you pay attention to professional golf, these days they have a team. One of them's working with their personality and their mental preparedness, but somebody is working with their swing. They have a swing coach. Well, the swing coach and the player have to be of one mind. And the player has to be willing to let the swing coach come into everything that's personal to them that makes up their ability to play golf. Well, so if somebody wants me to be a mentor for a particular opportunity that they want to pursue, the first thing is are you going to open up? Are you, it's not like I'm going to impart this transactional knowledge and you're suddenly going to be 20% better than you were. That's not it. It's just that you have to be open and allow us to work together. And there's a significant amount of trust that has to be there. And then I have to rely on them telling me the truth. And they have to rely on me providing valuable input. And, you can't always lay all that out, in 3 or 4 conversations. But I think before you become a mentor, you need to have the mentee say, yes, I want to do this. Does that make any sense at all?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not a golf person, and that one resonated really well. And I think that I don't think we need the rest of the webinar now. I think you kind of cleared it up in one short little answer. So, awesome. So reflecting on your experience as a mentor, what should a mentee or potential mentee not do? Are there any pet peeves or unintentional landmines that they may need to avoid? Anything that's kind of please don't do this. It irks people. It's not the right thing. Anything like that?
So what the mentee should not do with the mentor? Okay.
Man.
That's a good question. I think that and I've seen this in some relationships, Nicole, where use the analogy of the bird is trying to get to the point where they can leave the nest. And don't try to leave the nest too early. It could be a bad ending, right? So I think you're going to gain confidence. Let's just say this process is taking place. You're going to gain confidence, but let the mentor say, now's the time to leave the nest. And the mentor should be of a mind that that's exactly what the result should be. The end game is the mentee becomes a mentor for somebody else. But the timing of that is probably a joint decision, and the mentor should be involved in that.
That's a good point. I don't know if I thought about that, but I think that's amazing. All right. And then lastly, any advice you want to give to someone that may be considering becoming a mentee? Maybe they're looking for a mentor. What should they expect? What steps can they take to maximize the benefits of a mentorship relationship?
Yeah. My experience is most of the mentors that I've had have come from within the company, within that corporation. Maybe not in the same department, maybe not exactly in the same role, but within the company. But thinking about, the state of Arkansas and the different IT occupations, there are an awful lot of informal organizations that kind of organize by job role. So there's data analysts, there's cybersecurity, there's certainly within HR, there's a lot of different, it crosses industry sectors, but there are a lot of different organizations. So finding somebody that has this very similar role that maybe has more experience, that might be a good place to start. But then, to me, the trust and the truth comes back almost every time I think about what kind of relationship am I going to build between the mentee and the mentor. And I think those are the non-negotiables, if you will.
Absolutely. Well, Bill, I think that was my last question. Hopefully you can stick around. We'll have some questions here at the end, I'm sure. So to anyone that's listening, make sure to think of your questions so we can save those for the end, but we're just going to run through a couple other topics before we kind of wrap up today. All right. So our last webinar, again, was all about finding a mentor. So now we're kind of picking up from the place of now we found the mentor. Where do we go from there? So that first meeting can definitely be a little bit awkward. So we just wanted to give you a couple topic ideas that may help you get on the right path or kind of have an idea of what to walk into it with. So coming from a background in employee onboarding and engagement, I definitely love a good icebreaker. Feel like it just helps break that tension, helps start the conversation rolling in a more casual way. Because like I think Bill said, this is going to be the start of our relationship, hopefully a friendship, right? We're going to be on some good terms. So definitely want to get that rolling on the right foot. After that, you may want to work on setting your goals or expectations. What do you want to accomplish from this relationship, right? What are we working towards? Some communication preferences, email, phone, in person. I know we had some issues on the chat saying that maybe it was because of your location. So maybe that's an option where we can do some Zoom meetings, right? Maybe we don't have to meet in person, but maybe we can meet over Zoom once a month. So just being able to have that conversation with them, see what's going to be the best. We can talk about some structure and some frequency. How often are we meeting? Just confirming if you're the one setting those meetings or the mentor is the one setting it. Are you setting the agenda or are they setting it? Just finding out who's responsible for what and how often we're going to be meeting. You can talk about some boundaries and confidentiality. So what are you going to be able to talk about outside of the meetings? Is personal information off? Do they need to stay anonymous, saying, hey, don't mention my name outside of this? Is it strictly professional development? Are they willing to help, personal life as well? Just basically, what are you both comfortable with, right? We just want to make sure that everyone is on the same page. We're all comfortable walking through this whole experience. And then you want to set your next steps. Where are we going from here? Let's go ahead and establish that next meeting and when we're going to have that before we leave today. I know a lot of mentors are going to be extremely busy. Their time is very valuable. So sometimes we may have to grab that time way in advance and then adjust if necessary as that comes up. All right. So we already talked about the roles of being a mentee in our last webinar. So we just want to talk about, how to be an effective mentee. What does that look like? So in my opinion, it's clear communication. You need to be able to clearly communicate to your mentor what your goals are, what those expectations are. That way you're all on that same page. Be open and ready to hear feedback, being in the right headspace to hear that feedback and then take action on it. I think Bobby wrote in the chat that not being coachable is definitely going to be a big issue for a mentor, right? They're the ones that are sharing that knowledge. You're the one that came to them and asked them for said knowledge. And so being closed off to it can be a little bit frustrating sometimes. Doesn't mean we always agree with all the suggestions, and I've got a note on that a little bit later, but we just want to be respectful of your mentor's time. Again, they're going to be extremely busy with their own life, and they are offering you some of their time to help you grow. So we just want to be mindful of that. Showing up to our meetings on time, we're coming prepared, we have action items, we have questions prepared, we've done our homework, whatever it was, we are ready to go when the meeting is supposed to start. Maybe you can even offer to help them in return, right? Is there anything that you can take off of their plate? Can I review some of your work? Is there, something that I can help prepare for you? Can I help coach you on something? Whatever, right? Just help however you can, whatever that may look like. Every relationship will be a little bit different. And then you can take ownership for your own development. I think Bill mentioned that your mentor can guide you and provide you with all the direction in the world. Doesn't make any difference if we're not taking action on it, if we're not doing our homework and our part in that relationship as well. To do your homework, go to the events, go to the webinars that they suggested, read the article that they sent you, whatever it is, just that kind of thing, doing our part in the relationship. All right. On the flip side, we need an effective mentor. So some of those factors, establishing a relationship of trust. I think that was mentioned multiple times so far. Want to actively listen to your mentee. You want to be reliable, share your insights, your experiences, be a little bit vulnerable, be able to share, some of your mistakes that maybe you've made along the way. It's not a comfortable topic to have, but it'll definitely help them learn from some of your mistakes. Maybe we can find a better way of doing it going forward. Be honest and transparent with them. You want your mentee to feel comfortable sharing their areas that they're struggling with. Sometimes it can be helpful if they hear areas that you've struggled with in the past or how you've overcome some of those challenges. Share some resources and opportunities. If you have a networking event, send them over an invite, offer to introduce them to some people. If you have a webinar or an article that may be beneficial for the goals that you've established with them, send that their direction, right? Also from a mentee perspective or from someone that's on the receiving end, just shows that, hey, my mentor thought about me. That's amazing, right? We are still working on my goals. They saw something that's beneficial and it comes across really well on our side. That way they can also get some higher exposure if you have like a presentation or something on your workload that maybe they can review or they can help, gives you some feedback on, helps them get that higher exposure, right? Give them some experience with some actual hands-on work. Maybe you can explain some of the terms or explain what that means or why we did certain things, because then they're starting to obtain it and piece together some of the pieces and say, hey, this is how it applies in a real life setting. And so it kind of helps them on that direction as well. We want to encourage reflection and self-discovery. You can't do everything for them or else they're not going to be learning and growing. Guide them to make their own decisions, let them solve some problems or come to a solution by themselves. It's okay if they make a mistake. That's how we learn. So it's not going to be a foolproof plan. You're not going to get through it without making any mistakes ever. But it does help us kind of navigate those mistakes, or we have someone to bounce some ideas off of and say, okay, here's what happened. How can we fix it going forward? How can we avoid that going forward? So it just helps to have someone in your corner that understands. Then my personal opinion, the most important one is to celebrate all the achievements. Tell them that you appreciate all the hard work that they've been doing, right? Praise them when they've overcome something hard or they faced a challenge and they came out successful. Then just remind them that they should be proud of themselves, right? They're the ones that are putting in all this hard effort. They should be proud of themselves, help build their confidence, help fight that imposter syndrome a little bit, and help them realize that they're the ones that put in all this hard effort. That should be recognized. All right. Then I just had some frequent questions that we've had come up in the last webinar, some questions that I just thought might come up. So we thought we'd run through them real quick. Where do you find a mentor? Really, it can be anywhere. It can be networking events, LinkedIn, referrals from any of your connections from your current network, current or previous employers. Just be anywhere. There's not like one set rule. There's not a mentor shopping mall or anything like that. You just kind of have to explore your own network and see what works best for you. Can a mentor help with personal and professional growth? Absolutely. Mentors often share advice on work-life balance, communication skills, decision-making, personal growth, which all inherently kind of intertwine with your professional development as well. How does a mentorship relationship last? How long does it last? Really just depends on what you're looking for. I think Bill said that is the end goal, right? We want to be able to graduate from being the mentee to be a mentor eventually. Some may just last forever of some capacity. Maybe there is always something that you want to learn, or maybe you'll just maintain that friendship opposed to a formalized mentorship. Maybe you last 6 months, maybe last year. It's really not a set time frame. It just kind of depends on what goals you have, how quickly we can handle those, what that looks like going forward. What if I don't know what specific areas I need support with? This one's a little bit tricky because I always suggest that you have an idea before you approach a mentor, because we have to have an idea of like, this is what I want to accomplish. Otherwise, how do they know if they're going to be the right mentor for you? I suggest starting with a broad area of like, want to improve on my interpersonal skills, my communication skills, or, I know I'm not very good at presentation, or I need to be better at this specific software, language, or tool. So maybe you don't know specifically within that area, but you know that broad spectrum, that is an area of improvement. Then you can share those ideas with your mentor. Then together, maybe you can narrow it down and say, okay, here are the areas that we really want to focus on. This will help us get to our goals. And then you can establish those SMART goals to help achieve them. How do I establish some clear goals? I actually just touched on that. So SMART goals, that'll help you identify some measurable, realistic goals. So if you're not familiar with SMART, it's an acronym, stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. There's a whole bunch of resources out there on that. But basically, it just kind of helps you make sure that, we can measure our goal. There is some kind of metric that says, yes, we did accomplish this goal. Here is how much we did it or how we did it. Just making sure that it's relevant and not way out in left field and not going to be achievable. So there's a bunch of resources out there on that one. And then again, what if I don't agree with their advice? That's normal. We're humans. We're not going to agree with 100% of everyone else's opinion or the advice that's given. But I think it just matters about having that conversation to further explore some options with your mentor. Maybe was it a miscommunication? They didn't quite grasp the situation, or maybe it just isn't something that you're comfortable with, or it's not the advice that works for you. Just be open and honest, work together to find something that does work, right? Again, that transparency and honesty will be a big part of that. All right, we've reached the end of the presentation, so I did want to save enough time that we had to answer any questions that you may have or anything that you want to ask Bill since he's here. Yeah, give you a few minutes to write those in the chat.
I love this question. I almost want Bill to read it out loud. How do you pick up on that vibe on people broadcasting that they're open to being a mentor?
Yeah. Well, we know that there are some people who actually kind of list that as, well, I'm available to be a mentor. You can find them. That's probably not the majority of where you find the mentor. I would think that you're going to be led to someone either through a network, as you mentioned at the very beginning, Ashley, or somebody within your office or within your circle. I think that's where you're likely going to find them. And you're going to have to maybe go to them and say, hey, you look like you could be my mentor. Let's talk about it.
And I think, Nicole, you're our LinkedIn SME, but I think there is a filter field that says open to mentorship, which is what I think Bill was referring to. But I mean, I think it's kind of a numbers game. It's kind of like applying for jobs you may not get a response or a yes from the first person you reach out to, especially if it's a cold call or a cold in-mail via LinkedIn. But I think you just keep trying and use your network. Maybe they're connected to someone that you do know. Ask for that introduction. I think one of the questions, Nicole, was also sent in about like best practices on how long of a mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be curious on Bill's, answer. In my head, I feel like 6 months, it takes at least 6 months to really get to know someone. And especially if you're trying to be mindful of their time, maybe you just meet twice a month, once virtual, once in person.
Yeah.
If that's permittable. But Bill, what do you think when it comes?
Well, I think you're close. I would say 6 months to a year, but there were a couple things in the slides. That one is what we used to call the individual development plan. It says you're responsible for your own development. And when I saw that, I was thinking, there's saying that don't bring your supervisor or your boss a problem without some idea of what the solution should be. So I need development. I'm going to create a development plan. And maybe it's a development plan that here's what I'm going to do in June. Let's talk about what I'm going to do in July, and let's talk about what I'm going to do in August. And we kind of come up with that. But I think what you're suggesting is there ought to be a regular cadence. Whether it's weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, but you ought to have a regular cadence. I think one, that keeps you focused on what those actionable goals are. And two, it helps build the relationship that you need to build. It doesn't happen automatically. And, even if you start weekly, you might evolve to every other week. But as far as how long, my sense is you will both know. You'll come to the point where the mentor is like, okay, you got it. I'm still here. You got my cell number. You got my email address, but you got this.
Awesome.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was a great explanation. And I also think we opened the floodgates because there's some really good questions in here. So are there any official plans for ACDS to have a mentor-mentee program from an ACDS standpoint to help the search be a little bit more smooth?
Well, I think we all know that we're on the cusp of A, we recognize the need, and B, we're uniquely positioned to be kind of an independent third party to put together a program like that. And we haven't mentioned this, but so we use the registered apprenticeship program as a way to get non-traditional candidates into the IT profession. And with the registered apprenticeship program, the employer is required to have a mentor. Now, that mentor doesn't necessarily have to work for the employer, but the employer is supposed to help provide a mentor for the mentee or the apprentice. And so all the more reason why we should create this kind of educational opportunity and help make sure that mentor is A, exists, and B, is playing an active role.
Great.
Did that answer the question?
I think so. I'll keep an eye on the chat just in case something else.
I could have just said yes.
Short and sweet is good. So Bill, as a mentor, how can I encourage a current mentee to feel confident enough to come talk to me and ask the questions that they really want the answers to? When they don't really know what it is that they want, they feel like they end up brain dumping and overwhelming them with knowledge, which I fear can drive them away. It'd be more helpful if they came to them knowing sort of what they wanted already.
No, that's really good. That's really good because that there's no question that happens. And the mentee doesn't know what to ask sometimes at the beginning. And they may not even know where their skills need to be. So the first thing that the mentor needs to do is get them to talk. The mentor doesn't need to really be the one that opens up the topic every time they have a session. It ought to be the mentee. And I had this was one of the few times that my direct report boss was really an active mentor in everything. But we had a regular weekly meeting, and the first time we asked, he said, when you come here next week, tell me what you're going to do the following week and tell me how you did on the things that you were supposed to do last week. And a lot of that was development. It wasn't just checking boxes with, tactical things, but it was development in, improving, as you mentioned, it could be communication skills, could be presentation skills, it could be written communication. So I think you get the individual mentee to come up with, here's what I'm trying to work on.
Awesome. They said exactly how their mentor did it. They love it. But just to add on to what you said, Bill, so I come from a background in employee onboarding and engagement before I came back to staffing. And so I always used to joke around and say my new hires are like babies, right? They don't know what they don't know. They're coming in, they're overwhelmed. They don't know anything about the company or even to begin what questions to ask, right? I don't know anything about anything. And so I think as like a mentor, it's kind of important just to ask them those questions, right? Throw some questions out of them. What is your experience or exposure to this, right? Ashley mentioned starting with your goals and kind of working backwards from that point. So here's our goals. Let's ask some questions about this. Where are you at on this process? Based on your experience or knowledge, how do you think they need to get to that? Okay, well, let's ask some questions regarding that. So it's a little bit of investigation work, I think. Awesome.
No, that's some basic information. I agree. I agree.
All right. Any
that
other
it?
questions?
I don't know that we use this word, Nicole. It might have been in your slides, but this is a bit of a two-way confidential relationship.
Mhm.
So all the more reason why it should not be your supervisor. You know, it's really hard to tell your supervisor what you don't know.
That
But
is true.
so
That's a good
you really want to work together as a team where you share and share alike and you're developing. And there was somebody that mentioned in here, you know, sometimes the mentor learns from the mentee, and that's very true. Very true.
Great. Someone said this is their first webinar with ACDS, so that was exciting. Welcome. All right. Don't see any more questions rolling in. Of course, here is our contact information on the screen. So if you do need anything that we didn't get to today, feel free to reach out. We will be sending out some information afterwards. Hopefully we'll talk again soon. Thank you all so much for attending.
Appreciate everybody's attendance.
Thanks.
Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Jill.